The Arctic wind howled across the endless ice fields, carrying with it a sharp bite that made every exposed inch of skin burn. The research station sat like a small, stubborn island amidst the frozen wasteland, a cluster of metal buildings tethered together by thick cables and heated pathways. Inside, the scientists were busy with their daily routines, monitoring ice movements, recording temperatures, and taking core samples from the endless white plains. Life at the station was repetitive, lonely, and harsh, but safe. Predictable until the glint appeared. It was subtle at first, just a flash of metallic reflection under the surface of the ice, barely noticeable in the pale sunlight that never fully warmed the world. Dr. Karen Lee, the team leader, was reviewing satellite images when she spotted it. She leaned closer, squinting, feeling her pulse quicken. "Wait," she said softly, pointing at the screen. "Do you see that?" Her assistant Marco peered over her shoulder. "What am I supposed to be seeing?" "That right there," Karen said. It's not natural." "Look at the shape." The reflection was angular, precise. In a landscape of endless ice and snow, there was nothing that should have formed such a straight line or perfect curve. It was as if someone, or something, had placed it there intentionally. A decision was made quickly. The station's drilling team would go out and investigate. They suited up in heavy insulated gear, each layer adding weight to their movements, and climbed into the snow-covered transport vehicles. The engines growled and vibrated, and the vehicles sank slightly with every mile into the ice. The air outside was thin, the wind biting, but the team pressed on. Hours later, they reached the spot. The ice was thick, a solid wall of white and blue. Drilling machines were brought in, teeth of steel biting into frozen layers. Chips of ice flew, and the hum of machinery echoed across the flat expanse. It was slow work, and the scientists watched anxiously. Then, with a muffled shudder and a sudden flash of metal, the drill broke through. The surface beneath was smooth, dark, and metallic. Karen gasped. It's a ship." The team gathered around, carefully brushing away ice and frost. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its surface shimmered faintly, covered with strange symbols that glowed softly beneath the snow. It was elongated, aerodynamic, and perfectly preserved, as though the ice had kept it in suspended animation for centuries. "It must have been here for hundreds, maybe thousands of years," said Marco, awe in his voice. "But how? And why?" No one had an answer. Theories swirled. Some thought it could be an ancient human craft lost in the polar ice, perhaps from a forgotten expedition. Others whispered about extraterrestrial origins, stories they would normally dismiss but now seemed strangely plausible. The airlock of the ship was frozen shut, its edges encased in ice. Karen placed a careful hand on the surface, feeling a faint vibration beneath her fingers. The ship wasn't dead. Somehow it was alive in its own strange, quiet way. After hours of careful work, they managed to melt the ice sealing the door. Steam rose in the freezing air as a small panel shifted open, revealing darkness inside. The team held their breath. Karen adjusted her helmet light and stepped forward. The inside was unlike anything expected. Smooth walls of a pale metallic hue reflected the dim light, and faint luminescent lines ran along panels, pulsing softly. The air smelled faintly metallic but otherwise clean. It was as if the ship had been waiting for centuries for someone to arrive. "Be careful," she whispered. Marco entered cautiously, scanning the surroundings with his portable scanner. The readings were unusual. There was a low hum, an energy signature that should have been impossible for a frozen ship buried for centuries. "It's alive," he said finally. "The systems, they're active." Karen nodded, a mixture of excitement and fear rising in her chest. "We need to document everything, every detail. This could change everything we know." They moved deeper into the ship. The air was strangely breathable, though they kept their helmets on. Walls shifted slightly as they passed, almost like the ship was adjusting itself to their presence. Then they reached the main chamber. It was enormous, bigger than the station itself, filled with what appeared to be storage units, consoles, and chambers. One thing stood out immediately: rows of cryopods, each containing a figure. They were humanoid but different. Taller than humans, with pale, translucent skin and eyes larger than human eyes. They seemed peaceful, almost sleeping. Karen's heart raced. "Are they alive?" Marco shook his head slowly. "Not sure. But something tells me waking them might not be simple or safe." A sudden flicker ran across the panels on the walls, and soft lights glowed in sequence. A voice echoed in the chamber, not through speakers but directly in their minds, soft and melodic, though completely incomprehensible. Karen took a step back, gripping the edge of a console. "It's communicating." "Somehow. Communicating or warning us?" Marco asked nervously. They exchanged uneasy glances. No one wanted to admit the possibility, but it was there. The ship was aware. It knew they were inside, and somehow it had chosen to reveal itself. For hours, the team explored carefully. Every panel they touched responded, every console seemed alive. One of the younger scientists, Lena, accidentally pressed a sequence of buttons and the lights in one chamber brightened. Holographic images shimmered above the pods. Alien landscapes, cities, star systems. One image showed a planet slowly breaking apart, fiery cracks spreading across its surface. "It's a history," Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "Of them, or their people." The realization hit them all at once. This ship was not just a vessel. It was a message, a record of a civilization sent across space and time. The beings inside might be the last survivors. Karen stepped closer to one of the pods. The figure inside was still, peaceful, yet their presence radiated intelligence. She reached out tentatively, pressing a hand against the transparent surface. A soft pulse ran along her fingers. "It knows we're here," she whispered. "It's waiting for something." A rumble shook the chamber, faint but undeniable. Panels shifted, creating pathways that hadn't been visible before. A small door opened on its own, revealing another chamber beyond, larger and brighter. The team hesitated at the threshold, the unknown pressing against them. "Should we go in?" Marco asked, his voice low. Karen looked at the door, then at her team. Their faces mirrored her own mix of awe and fear, but one thing was certain. This was a discovery that could not be ignored. Curiosity, the same force that had driven humans to explore Earth's oceans and skies, pushed them forward. They stepped inside. The chamber was filled with a soft, white glow. Lines of energy ran along the walls, and in the center floated a single pod, different from the others. It was larger, with strange markings and faintly glowing symbols. Something inside shifted. Karen's heart pounded. This was the moment that would define their lives. Whatever was in that pod was not just a passenger. It was the key to understanding the ship, and perhaps something much larger, something that stretched far beyond the icy wasteland around them. The lights pulsed in rhythm with a slow, steady heartbeat. It was alive. The ship, the being inside, and now the humans, all connected in some way they could not yet understand. Karen swallowed hard. "We found something incredible," she said. "Something the world has never seen, and I think it's waiting for us to wake it." The team stood in silence, staring at the pod. Outside, the Arctic wind continued its relentless howl. Inside, a story that had been buried for millennia was about to begin. The first part of the adventure had only just started, and the questions they now faced were impossible to ignore. Who had built the ship? Why had it traveled so far? And most importantly, what and who was inside? The ice above the Arctic stretched endlessly, silent and cold. But deep beneath, a ship waited, alive and pulsing, ready to reveal secrets that could change humanity forever. The icy wind outside the Arctic research station howled like a distant storm, but inside the buried spaceship, the atmosphere was strangely calm. The faint glow from the walls cast long shadows over the team as they cautiously advanced through the ship's corridors. Every step echoed softly, though not entirely like sound. It felt as though the ship itself was aware of their presence, responding to each movement. Dr. Karen Lee led the way, flashlight in hand. The symbols along the walls pulsed gently as if guiding them toward some hidden destination. Marco, Lena, and the rest of the team followed closely, every sense alert. The initial awe they had felt during the discovery of the ship had shifted into cautious curiosity. They had no idea what they were dealing with. Was it simply an artifact of a lost civilization? Or was it something far more alive, far more dangerous? "I don't like this," Marco whispered. "It's too precise. Everything moves with purpose. It's like the ship is watching us." Karen nodded, her eyes fixed on a doorway at the end of the hall. "Maybe it is, but we have to find out what it wants or what it's hiding." They reached the next chamber, a vast, circular room filled with consoles, holographic displays. and strange machinery unlike anything Earth had ever produced. The centerpiece of the room was a cluster of cryogenic pods, each containing a humanoid figure. Unlike humans, these figures were taller, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly under the glow of the panels. Their large eyes were closed, and their expressions were peaceful. Some of them had faint traces of markings on their skin, intricate designs that pulsed softly with energy. Lena took a cautious step forward. "They're alive, aren't they? Or at least, preserved?" "Preserved," Karen corrected gently. "But look at them. They're not human, and they've been in stasis for centuries, maybe longer." As the team moved closer, one of the pods emitted a soft hiss. A faint mist escaped, and the temperature in the chamber dropped slightly. The lights on the walls brightened, and a series of holographic symbols appeared, floating above the pods. None of them could read the symbols, but they could feel the meaning in their minds. A strange, gentle pressure, almost like a thought reaching out. "What is it trying to tell us?" Marco asked. Karen shook her head. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's aware we're here." Lena reached out toward one of the pods. As her fingers brushed the surface, the figure inside stirred slightly. The large eyes opened, revealing deep, luminous pupils. The humanoid's gaze seemed to pierce through her. Not with hostility, but with intelligence, curiosity, and something else she couldn't quite name. A shiver ran down her spine. "It sees us," she whispered. Karen stepped closer, placing a hand on the pod. A pulse of energy ran through her fingers and up her arm. Faint but undeniable. The symbols on the walls flickered in response, and the soft hum of the ship grew louder, almost like a heartbeat. "It's alive," Karen said softly. "Not in the way we think of life, but it reacts. It understands." Suddenly the chamber shifted. Panels along the walls slid open, revealing additional corridors that had been hidden before. A door at the far end of the room slowly opened on its own, revealing a smaller chamber bathed in a soft white glow. In the center floated a single larger pod, unlike the others. It radiated energy, and faint, glowing symbols covered its surface. The team approached cautiously. The pod emitted a gentle hum, and the lights pulsed rhythmically. Lena's voice trembled as she spoke. "There's something inside." "Something different," Karen nodded. "We need to be careful. This could be the key to understanding the ship. Or it could be dangerous." Marco took a step back. Or both. After several tense minutes, Karen activated a portable scanner. The readings were off the charts. The pod's energy signature was unlike anything Earth had ever recorded. Vibrations, magnetic fields, and energy pulses all intertwined. It was not just a container. It was a living system, linked to the ship itself. Lena pointed at the symbols on the pod. "It's communicating, I think. With the ship, maybe with us too." Karen exhaled slowly. "If it is, we need to find a way to respond. Carefully." For the next few hours, the team experimented cautiously. They touched panels, watched the responses, and tried to interpret the soft pulses of light that traveled across the pod. Slowly, patterns emerged. The ship seemed to recognize their presence, adapting to their actions, almost like it was teaching them how to interact with it. It was not aggressive, not hostile, but it was deliberate, patient, and aware. As the evening wore on, the team made a startling discovery. The ship contained a database of holographic records. When activated, the panels displayed images of planets, civilizations, and stars. One sequence showed a vibrant alien world, cities filled with tall, luminous structures and beings similar to those in the pods, living peacefully. Another sequence showed disaster, a massive cosmic event destroying that world, leaving fragments of cities floating in space. The images flickered with energy, telling a story of exploration, survival, and loss. Karen stared at the display, her voice quiet. "This ship, it's a refugee vessel. It carried survivors from a world destroyed long ago." Marco ran a hand through his hair. "Thousands of years, maybe more, trapped in ice, waiting. For us?" "Yes," Karen said. "And now we found them." The team fell silent, absorbing the weight of the discovery. It was more than science. It was history. It was life traveling across the stars, preserved in the cold silence of the Arctic, waiting for someone capable of understanding. Then the larger pod began to shift. The mist around it thickened slightly, and the rhythmic pulsing of the lights grew stronger. Karen signaled the team to step back. The pod's surface rippled like liquid metal, and a faint glow emerged from within. Slowly, a figure became visible, a humanoid taller than humans with smooth, pale skin and eyes that glowed softly. It moved with the grace of someone waking from a long sleep. "Do we wake it?" Marco whispered, though his voice was tinged with fear and awe. Karen hesitated. "We have to. It's part of understanding this ship, but carefully. One wrong move could harm it. Or us." Using a delicate interface on the pod, Karen initiated the awakening sequence. Lights brightened, energy lines along the pod flowing in synchronized pulses. Slowly, the figure's eyes opened fully. They shone with intelligence and awareness, taking in the room, the team, and the ship itself. It did not speak, not in words, but the presence was undeniable. The air seemed to hum with life. The humanoid lifted its hand slightly, and the symbols on the wall shifted, glowing in response. A thought, or perhaps a feeling, reached the minds of the humans. Curiosity. It wanted to know about them, about Earth, about life outside the ship. Karen took a cautious step forward. "We can't come in peace. We are here to help." The humanoid tilted its head slightly as though considering her words. Then, in a moment that sent shivers down every spine, it extended a hand toward the team. It was an invitation, not a command. Marco swallowed hard. "It trusts us?" Karen nodded slowly. "Or it's testing us. Either way, we have to be careful, respectful. This is the first contact with another intelligent species. How we act matters." The humanoid stepped out of the pod, moving with fluid precision. Its gaze met each scientist in turn, lingering for a moment on their eyes as if reading their intentions. Then it paused, looking around the chamber, taking in the ship, the pods, and the glowing symbols. It was learning, absorbing, understanding, just as the humans had been doing for hours. Lena whispered, "It's beautiful. And human-like, but different." "So different." Karen smiled faintly despite the tension. "It is, and it's alive. We need to remember that." For hours they observed it. It moved among the pods, pausing at each one, touching the surfaces gently. Energy pulses spread from its fingers, and the pods responded, lights flickering, mist swirling as if communicating silently. Slowly, the humans began to understand. This being was trying to awaken or assess its companions, perhaps waiting for a signal from the humans, perhaps acting on instinct. Night fell outside, though in the Arctic. The pale sunlight lingered faintly even in darkness. Inside, the ship seemed alive, vibrant, and aware. The humans realized that the real discovery was not just the ship or the pods or even the humanoid itself. It was the connection, the bridge between species, between civilizations, between lives separated by time and space. Karen stood near the doorway of the chamber, her eyes scanning the glowing walls. "We've only just begun," she said quietly. "The ship and what's inside will teach us things we can't even imagine, and we have to be ready for everything." The humanoid turned to her, eyes glowing softly. For a brief moment, the humans felt a connection, a shared understanding across species, time, and distance. It was not words. It was not even thought. It was recognition. The first acknowledgement that humanity had finally reached beyond its world, and that whatever awaited in the ship, it would be shared. Together. Outside, the Arctic wind continued to howl. Inside, the future of humanity and the legacy of an ancient civilization had begun to awaken. The Arctic wind howled outside, but inside the buried spaceship, the air was calm and warm, almost alive. The glow from the walls illuminated the humanoid that had awakened the day before. It moved with grace, observing the scientists carefully. Every step it took seemed purposeful, like it was guiding them, yet remaining distant enough to maintain its own mystery. Dr. Karen Lee stood beside Marco and Lena, feeling both awe and a creeping sense of responsibility. The discovery of the ship had already changed everything they knew about the world. But now, with the humanoid awake, the questions multiplied. Who were these beings? Why had they come to Earth? And what message had they carried across the stars for so long? The humanoid's gaze shifted toward a wall of floating holographic panels. The lights flickered and pulsed, forming patterns the humans could not yet understand. Then slowly, symbols began to reorganize themselves into images that were more familiar. Stars, planets, and landscapes that resembled no place on Earth. Lena leaned closer to the display, her voice barely a whisper. "It's showing something." "A history? A story?" Karen nodded. "I think it's trying to communicate. We just have to interpret it carefully." For hours they studied the holograms, The alien humanoid remained patient, observing their reactions and occasionally gesturing toward the panels. Slowly, the scientists began to see a pattern. These were not random images. They were a chronicle, a record of a civilization that had traveled across the galaxy, exploring, learning, and thriving. The first scenes showed a vibrant planet with luminous cities, tall towers and beings similar to the humanoid itself. Their society was advanced but peaceful. They seemed to value knowledge, cooperation, and exploration above all else. Holograms depicted structures floating in the sky, vehicles moving effortlessly through the air, and energy sources that were clean and limitless. Then the images changed. Darkness crept over the planet, cracks forming across the city's skies igniting with unnatural light. The civilizations appeared to struggle, desperately trying to preserve life but ultimately failing. One image lingered longer than the others. A massive vessel like the one they had discovered leaving the dying world behind, carrying those who could escape. Karen's voice shook slightly as she said, "This ship, it's a refugee vessel. They were fleeing their home." Marco swallowed hard. "And the ones inside? They survived all this?" "Yes," Karen said, her eyes fixed on the glowing panels. "The pods, they're survivors. The ship has preserved them. Perhaps it's been waiting for someone to find them." The humanoid stepped forward, its glowing eyes shifting to the humans. For the first time, Karen felt a direct connection, not through words but through understanding. The being's thoughts, or perhaps its intentions, brushed against her mind. Curiosity, hope, and something else, an unspoken request for cooperation. Lena shivered. "It's asking us to help, isn't it?" Karen nodded slowly. "I think so, and we will. But carefully. We have to understand the ship first. It's not just a vessel. It's a library, a record, and possibly a warning." The team moved deeper into the ship, following the humanoid's guidance. Panels shifted as they approached, revealing more complex data and holographic projections. Some showed star systems they could not identify. Others displayed strange energy-based symbols that moved in rhythm as if alive. The ship seemed to anticipate their curiosity, responding to their presence and adjusting the information to their level of understanding. Marco tapped on a console, causing a holographic map of the galaxy to expand. "These coordinates, they're not from Earth, not from any system we know. These must be the stars of their origin." Karen studied the map. "It's a journey. They traveled for centuries, maybe millennia. And now they've reached us," the idea sank in slowly. The ship had not only preserved life, but had also traveled across space and time to reach a species capable of understanding it. And now, humanity was being evaluated, not as conquerors, not as enemies, but as potential allies. The humanoid approached a central console, its hand hovering over a glowing panel. Images shifted again, showing the humanoid's own people, the last survivors of their civilization, moving through space. One figure, similar to the humanoid they had awakened, was depicted guiding the ship and activating systems, ensuring life would continue even in exile. Karen whispered, "It's showing us their history, the last moments of their world, their survival, and maybe their hopes for the future." The realization settled over the team. The ship's journey was not just physical but moral and intellectual. It had carried the last witnesses of a civilization to a place where someone, or something, might understand them. And now, that understanding was being offered to humans. The humanoid turned to the humans again, its eyes glowing softly. For the first time, a thought seemed to pass clearly into Karen's mind. "We seek knowledge. We wish to live. We wish to understand. Can you help us continue?" Karen felt a lump in her throat. "We can," she said softly. "We will do everything we can to help." The humanoid's glow pulsed slightly faster, as if acknowledging her words. Then it gestured toward a chamber at the far end of the room, previously hidden. The scientists followed cautiously, their hearts pounding with excitement and fear. Inside the new chamber, they found additional pods, larger and more complex than the ones they had already seen. Energy flowed along conduits, connecting each pod to the central system. Holograms displayed not only images but sequences of data, mathematical equations, star maps, and diagrams of technologies beyond Earth's understanding. Lena gasped. This could revolutionize science. Energy, medicine, travel. Everything." Marco frowned. But can we even use it? We don't understand half of it yet. Karen nodded. We will. Slowly. Carefully. The ship is giving us the tools, but it is also teaching us patience. We must respect it. Hours passed as they studied the chamber, documenting every detail. The humanoid remained patient, moving among the pods, interacting with the systems and guiding the humans. Occasionally it touched a pod, and energy flowed through the chamber like a gentle current, activating systems or revealing new holograms. Suddenly a new set of images appeared, showing other civilizations, some advanced, some primitive. They seemed to be aware of the refugee civilization, observing them from afar. One image depicted a massive fleet traveling across space, its intentions unclear. Another showed planets being destroyed, consumed by forces the humans could barely comprehend. Karen's heart pounded. These images are warnings. There are dangers in the galaxy, forces that destroyed their world. Maybe they are still out there. The humanoid looked at her, and once again a thought passed into her mind. We wish to teach and learn. Can you survive what comes next? Karen swallowed. We can, we must. Humanity is ready. The being's eyes glowed brighter, and a series of holographic panels shifted, showing the last sequence of images. It was a message, a record of survival, hope, and a challenge. The humanoid's people had preserved their knowledge, their culture, and their spirit, sending it across the stars in the hope that someone capable would find it and continue their legacy. Lena whispered. They trusted us, Karen nodded, tears forming in her eyes. And we cannot fail them. The chamber hummed with energy, the lights pulsing in a rhythm that matched the humanoid's heartbeat. The ship itself seemed to acknowledge the humans, responding to their understanding and their willingness to engage. It was a delicate balance, trust, respect, and curiosity. As the scientists worked late into the Arctic night, they realized the ship had done more than preserve life. It had sent a message to the universe. Intelligence, compassion, and the desire to survive were worth protecting. And now humanity was the recipient of that message. Karen looked around at her team, then at the humanoid. We have to continue. We must learn everything we can from this ship. It has knowledge we cannot even imagine, and perhaps it will guide us to the stars. The humanoid extended its hand once more, not in command, but in invitation. The humans stepped forward together, united by awe, responsibility, and hope. For the first time, they understood that this was not just a discovery, it was a partnership. Humanity had been chosen in a way to continue a legacy that spanned the stars. Outside, the Arctic wind continued to howl. Inside, a message had been received. And humanity had begun to awaken to its place in the larger universe, an opportunity to learn, to grow, and perhaps to survive the challenges yet to come. The ship pulsed with life. The humanoid moved gracefully among the pods, and the humans stood ready. A new chapter had begun, a chapter that could change the future of both species and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. The Arctic sun hung low on the horizon, its pale light barely piercing the endless fields of ice. Inside the buried spaceship, the atmosphere was vibrant, alive with energy. The humans had spent days studying the ship and its systems, learning from the humanoid that had awakened in the previous part. Every moment brought new discoveries, and every discovery raised more questions. Dr. Karen Lee stood near a console, watching the humanoid move gracefully among the pods. It had begun interacting more freely with the humans, responding to their actions and guiding them to areas they had not yet explored. Its eyes glowed softly, and each movement seemed purposeful, as though it were teaching them. We've only scratched the surface, Karen said quietly, more to herself than to the team. There's so much here. Knowledge, technology, history, everything we've ever imagined and more. Lena nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Every system, every panel, it's alive, but also intelligent, like it knows what we need to learn. Marco, however, remained cautious. I still don't understand why it trusts us. How do we know it's not testing us? Or worse? Karen smiled faintly. Maybe both. But we have to take the risk. This is history, Marco. This is first contact with another intelligent species, and the future of humanity may depend on it. The humanoid suddenly stopped and turned toward them. It extended its hand toward the humans, and a soft pulse of light traveled along the floor, forming a glowing pathway to another chamber. The humans exchanged glances. Karen took a deep breath. It's inviting us. We follow. They stepped carefully along the illuminated path. The chamber they entered was larger than anything they had seen before. Holographic panels floated in the air, displaying complex star maps, energy flows, and alien symbols. In the center was a circular platform glowing faintly. The humanoid moved toward it and gestured for the humans to approach. Karen stepped forward cautiously. "What is this?" she asked. The humanoid's eyes glowed brighter. A thought, or perhaps a feeling, entered Karen's mind. Knowledge, understanding, connection. Lena leaned closer to a panel. "It's showing us energy systems, travel methods, things we've never imagined. If we can understand this, humanity could advance faster than we've ever dreamed." Marco frowned. "But we don't even know how it works." "What if we make a mistake?" Karen shook her head. "We learn slowly, carefully. That's all we can do." The humanoid extended a hand toward one of the floating panels. Lines of light traced from the panel to its fingers, and then spread to the human's devices. The scanners and tablets began to display data in ways they could understand. It was not direct teaching, but a bridge, a translation of knowledge. Hours passed as they studied. The humanoid moved among them, observing their reactions and adjusting the flow of information. The humans began to grasp energy systems far beyond Earth's capabilities, propulsion that required no fuel, shields that could protect entire cities, medical technologies that could heal wounds instantly. Then the ship's system shifted again. The panels displayed images of other civilizations, some advanced, some primitive. They were observing the refugee civilization as it traveled through space. Some seemed peaceful, curious, and welcoming. Others were hostile, predatory, and destructive. One sequence showed massive fleets moving toward the refugee world, while another depicted planets being destroyed, consumed by forces beyond comprehension. Karen's heart pounded. Their warnings. Dangers exist in the galaxy, forces that destroyed their home and perhaps others too. The humanoid looked at her, and once again, a thought entered her mind. Humans are strong, adaptable. We see potential. Can you survive what comes next? Karen met its gaze firmly. We will. Humanity has faced dangers before, and we will face this one too. We learn, we adapt, and we survive. The humanoid's glow pulsed softly as if acknowledging her determination. It then guided them toward another chamber, smaller and darker. Inside, a single pod floated, larger and more complex than the others. Mist swirled gently around it, and faint symbols glowed along its surface. "This one is different," Lena whispered. "It's alive in a different way." "More aware," Karen nodded. "It may be the leader, the last of their kind to guide the others. We have to be extremely careful." Using the interface on the pod, Karen initiated the awakening process. Lights brightened, and energy pulsed along the floor and walls. The humanoid beside her extended a hand toward the pod, and a soft connection formed, like a bridge of understanding. Slowly, the pod's surface rippled, and the being inside moved. Its eyes opened, glowing with intelligence and curiosity. The room seemed to hum with life. The new humanoid floated gently out of the pod, observing the humans and the ship. It made no sound, but Karen felt a direct awareness, a presence that seemed to reach into her thoughts. "We seek understanding. Can you help us continue our legacy?" Karen stepped forward, her voice steady. "Yes, we can. We will do everything we can to help you." The humanoid's eyes pulsed softly. Then, it reached out and touched one of the consoles. Energy spread from its fingers, activating more systems. Holograms of their home planet, their people, and their history filled the room. The humans watched in awe, realizing that this being carried not only knowledge but also the memory of an entire civilization. The first humanoid stepped closer to the humans, moving gracefully. It gestured toward the newly awakened one. Together, the two beings began interacting with the ship in ways the humans could barely follow. Panels shifted, systems activated, and more holographic projections appeared, showing technologies and ideas that were centuries, perhaps millennia beyond anything on Earth, Lena whispered. "They're teaching us, but also, they're showing us their civilization, their people, everything." Marco's eyes widened. "It's beautiful, but also overwhelming. How do we even begin to understand all this?" Karen smiled faintly. "We take it one step at a time. That's what humans do best. We adapt, we learn, and we help when it matters most." As they worked, A subtle warning flickered across the panels. External sensors had detected something approaching. Satellites, reconnaissance drones, perhaps even military surveillance. The humans realized that the discovery of the ship could not remain a secret for long. Karen's expression hardened. We have to protect the ship. It's not just an artifact. It's alive, and it's carrying the last hope of an entire civilization. The humanoid observed her carefully. Once again, a thought reached her mind. You are capable. You can protect. You can learn. You can survive, Marco stepped forward. But how do we protect it? We don't have weapons that can compete with what's out there. Karen nodded. We don't have to compete. We have to be clever. The humanoid has knowledge we can use. We just need to understand it first and fast. For hours, the team worked with the humanoids, learning about energy shields, stealth systems, and methods to control the ship remotely. Every moment brought new knowledge, every new understanding a deeper sense of connection. The humans began to see their own strengths mirrored in the alien beings: curiosity, resilience, and the determination to survive. By the end of the day, a plan had formed. The ship could be protected, hidden from the outside world, and the humans could learn from it safely. But more importantly, the humans realized that their qualities, ingenuity, courage, and empathy, were exactly what the humanoids had been searching for. Karen stood near the chamber entrance, watching the two humanoids interact with the systems. They've chosen us, she said quietly. Not just because we found them, but because they see something in humanity. Something worth trusting. Lena smiled softly. And we can't let them down. Outside, the Arctic wind continued to howl, but inside, the ship thrummed with life. The humanoids moved gracefully, teaching and guiding, while the humans absorbed every lesson, every insight. A partnership had begun, an alliance that could reshape the future. The first step had been taken. Humanity had reached beyond its world, and the beings from the stars had acknowledged them. The challenges ahead would be immense, but for the first time the humans felt truly capable. They were not just observers. They were participants, and together they could face whatever the galaxy had in store. Karen looked around at her team and the humanoids. This is only the beginning, she said. But we're ready, and we will make sure this knowledge, this civilization, survives. With us. The ship pulsed with light, energy flowing like a heartbeat. The humanoid stood beside the humans, a silent affirmation of trust and understanding. Outside, the Arctic wind continued its relentless howl. Inside, life, knowledge, and hope had awakened, and humanity was ready to rise to the challenge. The Arctic night stretched endlessly, pale light reflecting off the frozen landscape. Inside the buried spaceship, the air thrummed with energy. Dr. Karen Lee and her team had spent weeks learning from the humanoids, deciphering the ship's systems, and understanding its history. What had begun as a discovery had turned into a partnership, a delicate alliance between humans and an alien civilization that had survived across centuries. But the calm would not last. A sudden alert pulsed across the central console. Red lights flashed, and the ship emitted a low hum, deeper and more urgent than before. Karen approached, scanning the panels. The sensors indicated movement outside the Arctic ice, ships, vessels that should not have been there. They found us, Marco said, his voice tense. Or someone else did. Karen's expression hardened. We knew this day could come. The ship's technology is incredible, and someone will want it, but we're ready. The humanoids moved beside the humans, their glowing eyes scanning the sensors. They radiated calm confidence, but Karen could sense the subtle tension beneath their serenity. They are predators. The humanoid communicated directly into Karen's mind. They seek what we carry. They will not hesitate. Karen nodded, relaying instructions to her team. We protect the ship. We secure the humanoids, and we prepare to move if necessary. The first vessels emerged from the horizon, sleek and dark, cutting through the icy winds. Unlike anything Earth had produced, they shimmered with energy shields and moved with silent precision. Karen's heart pounded. Humanity had never faced a threat like this, and yet, for the first time, she felt a strange confidence. They had knowledge from the humanoids, and more importantly, they had ingenuity, human ingenuity. The humanoids activated the ship's defense systems. Panels along the walls pulsed with light, and energy fields shimmered around the vessel. But the humans had to do more than wait. Karen instructed Marco and Lena to operate the ship's control systems, carefully aligning energy patterns and calibrating shields. As the enemy vessels approached, Karen realized something remarkable. The ship was teaching them. Every movement, every adjustment they made was not just operational, it was a lesson. The humanoids guided their hands, showing them the subtle nuances of energy flow, shield alignment, and evasive maneuvering. Humanity was learning faster than any simulation on Earth could have prepared them for. The first shots came, a pulse of energy that struck the outer ice, sending shards flying. Karen steadied herself. Focus. Follow the ship's guidance. We can do this. The humans adjusted the shields and redirected the energy pulses. The alien vessels struck again. But their attacks were less precise than the humans' responses. Each strike was met with a calculated defense, a combination of alien technology and human ingenuity. Lena grinned, exhilaration replacing fear. We're doing it. We're actually doing it. Marco laughed, adrenaline surging through him. Who would have thought? Humans fighting alongside aliens in the Arctic. Karen smiled faintly, but her mind stayed focused. This is not a game. Every second counts. Keep adjusting. Keep learning. The humanoids moved among the humans, their glowing hands passing over consoles, guiding, correcting, teaching. Each pulse of energy from their hands strengthened the shields and activated new defensive measures. Slowly, the humans realized that the ship was not just a vessel, it was a living, responsive system, and they were becoming part of it. The enemy vessels began to falter. Their movements grew erratic and their energy pulses lost precision. Karen noticed it immediately. They're not used to this. They expected an easy target. The humanoids communicated through thought. Your ingenuity is valuable. Use it, adapt, survive. Karen understood. This was the first true test, not just of the ship but of humanity's ability to work with another civilization, to adapt and survive in the face of overwhelming odds. She gestured toward the control console. Marco, Lena, initiate the countermeasure sequence. We're going to drive them back. The humans activated the sequence and the ship responded instantly. Energy fields expanded, forming a protective dome around the vessel. Pulses of light shot outward, not as weapons but as a force that disrupted the enemy ship's navigation systems. The alien vessels wavered, then retreated slightly, unable to maintain control in the energy field. Karen's voice was steady as she gave commands. Keep it tight. Don't let them regroup. The humanoids moved in synchrony, their luminous hands weaving patterns of energy that enhanced the ship's systems. Together, humans and aliens created a defense that was both precise and adaptive, using knowledge, intuition, and courage in perfect harmony. The enemy vessels hesitated. Karen realized they had never encountered this kind of resistance. Not just technology, but coordinated thinking between two different species. Humanity's creativity and adaptability were an unpredictable factor that the attackers could not anticipate. Now, Karen shouted, deploy the holographic decoys. Panels shifted and dozens of projections of the ship appeared across the ice. The enemy vessels fired at the decoys, wasting energy and exposing their positions. The humanoids guided the humans in fine-tuning the decoy patterns, creating an intricate dance of light and motion that confused the attackers. Within moments, the enemy fleet began to retreat. Karen's heart pounded with a mixture of relief and exhilaration. Humanity had survived its first true test in the galaxy, and they had done so not with brute force but with intelligence, coordination, and courage. The humanoids turned toward the humans, their eyes glowing softly. You have proven yourselves. You are worthy. Karen nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. We've only begun, but we're ready for whatever comes next. The Arctic wind continued to howl outside, but inside the ship there was warmth, light, and life. Humanity had not only discovered an ancient civilization, they had earned its trust. They had faced the first challenge together and survived, and in doing so they had demonstrated the very qualities that made them capable of standing among the stars: ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. For hours the humans and humanoids worked together, reinforcing the ship's systems and analyzing the attackers' technology. Every moment was a lesson, every adjustment a step toward mastery. Karen realized that this was more than survival. It was evolution. Humanity was no longer limited to Earth. They were becoming participants in a larger story, one that spanned civilizations, stars, and centuries. Lena laughed softly, exhaustion and excitement mixing in her voice. I can't believe it. We actually did it. We defended a starship alongside aliens against real threats. Marco shook his head, still amazed. And we did it without firing a single real weapon. Just brains, teamwork, and trust. Karen smiled, but her mind was already focused on the future. This is just the beginning. The galaxy is full of challenges, but also opportunities. And now, we have allies we can trust, knowledge we can build on, and a chance to rise beyond Earth. The humanoids gathered near the central platform, glowing softly, as if acknowledging their shared victory. One of them extended a hand toward Karen. She took it, feeling a pulse of energy, not dangerous but affirming. It was a connection, a promise of partnership and understanding. We will continue together, the humanoid conveyed. We will share knowledge, protect life, and explore. Karen nodded, her eyes shining. Yes, together. Outside, the Arctic ice stretched endlessly, silent and white. But inside, the ship pulsed with life, knowledge, and hope. The humans had proven themselves not just as explorers, but as guardians. They had learned from the humanoids, adapted, and faced the first test of trust and ingenuity. The journey ahead would be long and full of challenges. But humanity had taken the first step, one that would echo across the stars, shaping the future not just of Earth, but of life in the galaxy. As the red lights of the distant threat faded from the sensors and the ship hummed with renewed energy, Karen looked around at her team and the humanoids. We've done it. We've survived, and now we begin the real work, learning, exploring, and rising to the challenge of the universe. The ship's glow expanded, illuminating the icy landscape beyond. It was no longer just a vessel buried in Arctic ice. It was a beacon, a symbol of survival, cooperation, and hope. Humanity had discovered life beyond its world, faced danger, and proven its worth. And now, the story of humans and the last survivors of an ancient civilization had truly begun. For the first time, the stars no longer felt distant. They were reachable, and humanity, guided by curiosity, courage, and intelligence, was ready to meet the universe head-on. The Arctic wind howled outside, but inside a new chapter had begun, a chapter of partnership, discovery, and the rise of humanity among the stars.